The massive space station orbited Neptune like a metal moon, its silver surface reflecting the distant light of the sun. Inside the station, hundreds of beings from across the galaxy worked together to create movies that would be watched on thousands of worlds. This was Terra Studios, the biggest movie company in known space, and it was run entirely by humans. Lisa Carter floated in the zero-gravity chamber, practicing her lines for the 100th time that day. She was 28 years old, with brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail and green eyes that showed both determination and worry. She had been acting in small roles for 5 years, but this was her first chance to be the main character in a big movie. The movie was called Warriors of Earth, and it told the story of how humans first fought against alien invaders 200 years ago. "Remember, you are not just Lisa Carter up there," she whispered to herself. "You are Commander Sarah Blake, the woman who saved Earth from the destroyer fleet." On the other side of the station, Jake Morrison was checking the safety equipment for the next day's action scenes. Jake was 35 years old, tall and strong, with short black hair and calm blue eyes. He had been doing stunt work and coordinating action scenes for 12 years. In that time, he had worked with beings from over 30 different planets, and they all respected him for his skill and his fairness. Jake's assistant, a young Zentari named Zek-9, approached him with a clipboard. The Zentari looked like humans, but had gray skin and large black eyes. Zek-9 had been working with Jake for 2 years and had learned to speak English very well. "Jake, Director Crane wants to see you in his office," Zek-9 said, his voice carrying the slight musical tone that all Zentari had when they spoke. Jake nodded and made his way through the station's corridors. The walls were lined with posters from famous movies that Terra Studios had made over the past 50 years. There were pictures of human actors fighting space pirates, exploring new worlds, and making peace with alien civilizations. These movies had made humans famous across the galaxy as brave, clever, and fair people. Director Victor Crane sat behind his desk in the biggest office on the station. Crane was 52 years old, with gray hair slicked back and cold brown eyes. He wore expensive clothes and had rings on every finger. On the wall behind him were awards from movie festivals on dozens of worlds. Crane had directed some of the most successful movies ever made, but everyone who worked with him knew he was not a kind man. "Morrison, sit down," Crane said without looking up from his tablet. "We start filming the big battle scene tomorrow. I want everything perfect. This movie will make us more money than any movie ever made, and I will not let anyone ruin it." Jake sat down in the uncomfortable metal chair. "The equipment is ready, Director. The actors have been practicing for weeks. Lisa Carter knows her lines perfectly, and the alien actors are all prepared." Crane finally looked up and his eyes were cold. "Lisa Carter. Yes, let's talk about her. I am not sure she is right for this role. She seems too soft, too weak. The character of Commander Blake was a warrior, a fighter. I need someone who can show the galaxy what human strength really looks like." "Lisa is a good actress," Jake said carefully. "She understands the character, and she has been working very hard." "Working hard is not enough," Crane snapped. "I need someone who can make every alien in the audience believe that humans are the strongest species in the galaxy. If Lisa cannot do that, I will find someone who can." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach, but he kept his voice calm. "Give her a chance, Director. Let her show you what she can do." Crane leaned back in his chair and smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Oh, I will give her a chance. I will give her every chance to prove herself. And if she fails, everyone will know it." After Jake left the office, he found Lisa in the practice room. She was working with Lyra, a Velen costume designer who had become her friend over the past few weeks. The Velens were thin, graceful beings with blue skin and silver hair. They were known throughout the galaxy for their artistic abilities and their gentle nature. "How was your meeting with the director?" Lisa asked, though she could see the worry in Jake's eyes. "He wants tomorrow to be perfect," Jake said. "Just do your best, Lisa. That's all anyone can ask." Lyra touched Lisa's shoulder with her long, thin fingers. "In Velen culture, we believe that art comes from the heart, not from fear. You have a good heart, Lisa. Let it guide you tomorrow." That evening, the crew gathered in the station's main dining hall for dinner. There were humans, Zentari, Velans, and Korvex all eating together and talking about the next day's filming. The Korvex were the most unusual looking, with their tall, thin bodies and heads that looked like they were made of crystal. They were incredibly smart and logical, and they had been hired to handle all the computer effects for the movie. A Korvex named Crick 7 sat next to Jake during dinner. "I have been observing Director Crane's behavior patterns," Crick 7 said in his computer-like voice. "His stress levels have been increasing each day. This may affect his decision-making tomorrow." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Humans under stress sometimes act in ways that are not logical," Crick 7 explained. "They may become aggressive or make poor choices. I have seen this before in other human directors, though not to this degree." Jake looked around the dining hall at all the different species working together. For the past 100 years, humans had been known throughout the galaxy as fair leaders and good partners. They had earned respect by treating all beings with dignity and helping to solve conflicts between different worlds. But Jake was starting to worry that Director Crane might damage that reputation. "Crick 7, Jake said quietly. "If you see anything tomorrow that seems wrong, will you record it?" The Korvex's crystal head tilted slightly. "Define wrong in this context. If Director Crane treats anyone badly, especially Lisa, I want there to be a record of it." Crick 7 was quiet for a moment, processing this request. "I understand. I will monitor the situation and record any behavior that goes against standard professional protocols." As the evening ended and the crew members went to their quarters to sleep, Jake stood at one of the station's viewing windows and looked out at the stars. Tomorrow would be the biggest day of filming, and he had a bad feeling about what Director Crane might do. But Jake had spent his whole career protecting the people he worked with, and he was not going to stop now. In her quarters, Lisa practiced her lines one more time before going to sleep. She did not know that tomorrow would change everything, not just for her, but for how the entire galaxy viewed human nature and the lengths that humans would go to protect each other. The filming set looked like a real battlefield from 200 years ago. Smoke machines filled the air with gray clouds, and lights flashed to look like explosions. The alien actors wore costumes that made them look like the destroyer fleet, the enemy that had once attacked Earth. Lisa Carter stood in the center of it all, wearing the blue uniform of Commander Sarah Blake. "Places, everyone!" Director Crane shouted from his chair behind the cameras. "This is the most important scene in the movie. Commander Blake refuses to surrender even when the aliens have destroyed half of her fleet. She shows them what human courage really means." Lisa took a deep breath and got into position. Around her, 30 actors from different species prepared to film the battle scene. Jake Morrison watched from the side, making sure all the safety equipment was working properly. Zek 9 held his camera ready to film everything, while Lyra adjusted Lisa's costume one last time. "Action!" Crane yelled. Lisa stepped forward and began her speech. "You may have destroyed our ships, but you will never destroy our spirit. Humans do not give up. We do not surrender. We fight until the very end because that is who we are." "Cut!" Crane shouted after only 10 seconds. "That was terrible, absolutely terrible." Lisa looked confused. She had practiced this speech hundreds of times and thought she had done it well. "What was wrong with it, Director?" Crane stood up from his chair and walked onto the set. His face was red with anger. "What was wrong? Everything was wrong. You sounded like you were reading from a shopping list, not giving the greatest speech in human history." The alien actors looked uncomfortable. They had all worked on movies before, and they knew that directors sometimes got upset, but Crane's voice was much louder and angrier than normal. "I'm sorry, Director," Lisa said quietly. "Let me try again." "Oh, you'll try again," Crane said, walking in a circle around her. "You'll try again and again until you get it right. Do you know how much money this movie costs to make every day? Do you know how many people are depending on you to not embarrass the human race?" Jake felt his hands turn into fists, but he stayed where he was. He had worked with difficult directors before, but something about Crane's tone was different today. It was cruel in a way that went beyond just wanting a good performance. "Places, everyone," Crane shouted again. "And Lisa, this time try to remember, That you're supposed to be the strongest human who ever lived, not someone's weak little sister. The alien crew members exchanged glances. Crick 7, the Corvex's computer expert, began quietly recording everything with his equipment. He had worked with humans for many years, and he knew this was not normal behavior. Lisa tried the scene again. This time she put more strength in her voice and stood straighter. When she finished, she looked hopefully at Director Crane. "Better," Crane said, "but still not good enough. You're still too soft, too feminine." Commander Blake was a warrior, not a school teacher. "I am trying my best," Lisa said, and her voice shook slightly. "Your best is not good enough," Crane yelled so loudly that everyone on the set jumped. "Look at you, you're about to cry like a little girl. Is that what we want to show the galaxy? That human women fall apart under pressure?" Lyra, the Velen costume designer, stepped forward. "Director Crane, perhaps we could take a short break." "Nobody asked you," Crane snapped at her. "This is between me and my actress who can't seem to understand what strength means." Jake took a step forward, but Zek 9 caught his arm. The young Zentari shook his head slightly, warning Jake to wait. But Jake could see that Lisa was starting to shake, and his anger was growing stronger. "Again," Crane demanded. "And this time, Lisa, I want you to think about every human who has ever fought and died for our species. Think about whether you're honoring their memory or spitting on it." Lisa tried the scene a third time, then a fourth, then a fifth. Each time, Crane found something wrong. Her voice was too quiet, then too loud. She was standing wrong. She was holding her hands wrong. Her expression was wrong. By the 10th attempt, tears were starting to form in Lisa's eyes. The alien actors were all watching in shocked silence. They had heard stories about human strength and human kindness, but this was neither strong nor kind. "I can see you're about to cry," Crane said with a nasty smile. "Perfect. Now everyone can see what I'm working with. A weak, emotional actress who thinks she can represent human courage." "Director," Jake said, finally speaking up, Maybe you should stay out of this, Morrison," Crane interrupted. "I'm the director here. I decide when we're done." Jake's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. Around the set, the alien crew members were whispering to each other in their own languages. They were confused and upset by what they were seeing. "Let's try something different," Crane said to Lisa. "Since you can't seem to deliver the speech with any strength, maybe you should do it from your knees. That way, when you sound weak, at least you'll look the part." "What?" Lisa asked, not believing what she had heard. "You heard me. Get on your knees and give the speech. Maybe that will help you understand how pathetic you sound." The entire set became completely quiet. Even the machines that made the smoke and light seemed to pause. Lisa stood there for a long moment, looking around at all the faces watching her. The alien actors looked shocked. The human crew members looked angry and embarrassed. I don't think," Lisa started to say. "You don't think?" Crane yelled. "That's your problem right there. You don't think. You just stand there and waste everyone's time. Now get on your knees and do the scene, or I'll find someone who will." Lisa's face turned red, and a tear finally rolled down her cheek. Slowly, she got down on her knees in the middle of the fake battlefield. Her voice shook as she tried to give the speech about human courage while kneeling on the cold metal floor. Jake Morrison felt something break inside his chest. He had worked in the movie business for 12 years, and he had seen directors get angry before, but he had never seen anyone humiliate another person like this, especially not in front of beings from other worlds who looked up to humans. When Lisa finished the speech, she was crying openly. Crane clapped his hands slowly and mockingly. "There we go," he said. "Now you finally sound like someone who knows they're beaten. Too bad that's not what the scene is supposed to be about." Lyra ran to Lisa and helped her stand up. Several of the alien actors moved closer, trying to show support without making Crane angrier. "That's enough for today," Crane announced. "Everyone, think about what you saw here. This is what happens when someone isn't strong enough for the job. We'll try again tomorrow, and maybe Lisa will have figured out how to act like a real human by then." As the crew began to clean up the set, Jake Morrison stood perfectly still, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He watched Lisa walk away with tears still running down her face, supported by Lyra and some of the other alien crew members. For 12 years, Jake had worked to show the galaxy the best of human nature. He had been proud to represent his species among the stars. But today he had watched a human destroy everything that humans were supposed to stand for, and Jake Morrison was not going to let that happen again. Lisa Carter did not sleep well that night. She lay in her small quarters staring at the ceiling, thinking about what had happened on the set. Her eyes were still red from crying, and her knees hurt from kneeling on the metal floor. She kept hearing Director Crane's voice in her head, calling her weak and pathetic. At 3 a.m, there was a soft knock on her door. Lisa opened it to find Lyra standing in the hallway with a cup of hot tea. "I thought you might need this," the Velen said gently. "In my culture, we drink moonleaf tea when we are sad. It helps calm the mind." Lisa took the cup with shaking hands. "Thank you, Lyra. I don't know if I can do this anymore. Maybe Director Crane is right. Maybe I'm not strong enough." Lyra's silver eyes looked sad. "Lisa, I have worked on movies with beings from 40 different worlds. I have never seen a director treat anyone the way Crane treated you today. That was not about your acting. That was about him being cruel." "But what if he's right?" Lisa whispered. "What if I really am too weak to play this part? The humans I have met in my life have all been kind and fair," Lyra said. "They help others and protect those who cannot protect themselves. What Director Crane did today was not human behavior. It was the behavior of someone who has forgotten what it means to be a good person." Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was in the equipment room, checking and rechecking every piece of safety gear for the next day's filming. He always did this when he was angry or worried. Working with his hands helped him think clearly. Zek 9 found him, there at 4 a.m, still testing harnesses and checking cables. "Jake, you should be sleeping," the young Zentari said. "Tomorrow will be a long day." Jake looked up from the rope he was examining. His blue eyes were cold with anger. "I keep thinking about what happened today, Zek. In 12 years of working in movies, I have never seen anything like that." Director Crane was very harsh, Zek 9 agreed. In Zentari culture, leaders are supposed to guide and teach, not humiliate. What he did to Lisa Carter was wrong. "It was more than wrong," Jake said, his voice getting harder. "It was evil. And he did it in front of beings from other worlds. He made us all look bad." Zek 9 was quiet for a moment, then he said, "Jake, I recorded everything that happened today. All of it. If Lisa Carter wants to make a complaint to the studio, she will have proof." Jake nodded. "Good. Keep those recordings safe." The next morning, everyone gathered on the set for another day of filming. Lisa looked tired and nervous. She had put on makeup to hide the fact that she had been crying, but Jake could still see the sadness in her eyes. Director Crane arrived 30 minutes late, carrying a cup of expensive coffee and acting like nothing had happened the day before. "Good morning, everyone," he said cheerfully. "Today we're going to film the scene where Commander Blake inspires her troops to fight harder. Lisa, I hope you're ready to show us some real emotion today." Lisa nodded silently and took her place on the set. The alien actors got into their positions, but Jake noticed they all stayed closer to Lisa than usual, as if they were trying to protect her. "Action!" Crane called out. Lisa began the scene. She was supposed to walk among the human soldiers and give them courage for the final battle. Her voice was strong and clear as she delivered the lines about never giving up and fighting for what was right. "Cut!" Crane yelled after she had spoken for less than a minute. "What was that supposed to be?" "I thought I did well," Lisa said quietly. "You thought wrong," Crane snapped. "You sounded like you were reading a bedtime story, not leading soldiers into battle. Where's the fire? Where's the passion?" Lisa's shoulders sagged. "I'm trying, Director. Please tell me what you want me to do differently." "What I want is for you to stop being so feminine," Crane said loudly. "This character is supposed to be strong like a man, not soft like a woman. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe women just can't play strong characters." The alien crew members started whispering to each other. They were confused because they had always believed that human men and women were equal. Many of the most famous human leaders they had heard about were women. Crick 7, the Corvex computer expert, spoke up in his mechanical voice. Director Crane, my research shows that many of the greatest human military leaders in history were female. Commander Blake herself was a woman. How can playing a woman be wrong for this role? Crane's face turned red with anger. Don't tell me how to direct my movie, you walking calculator. I know what audiences want to see. Jake Morrison felt his anger growing hotter. Crane was not just being cruel to Lisa now. He was embarrassing all humans in front of their alien co-workers. Let's try the scene again, Crane said to Lisa. And this time, try to remember that you're supposed to be inspiring people, not putting them to sleep. Lisa tried the scene again. She put more energy into her voice and moved around more as she spoke. When she finished, she looked hopefully at the director. Better, Crane said, but still not right. You know what your problem is, Lisa? You're thinking too much like a woman. You need to think like a man if you want to play a strong character. I don't understand what that means, Lisa said. It means stop being so emotional and weak, Crane explained. Men don't cry when things get difficult. Men don't need their feelings protected. Men are strong and tough and they get the job done. Jake. Morrison had heard enough. He stepped forward from his position by the cameras. Director, I don't care what you think, Morrison, Crane interrupted. Unless you want to find a new job, you'll keep your mouth shut. Jake stopped walking, but his hands were clenched into fists. Several of the alien crew members were watching him with interest. They had never seen a human look so angry while staying so still. You know what, Lisa? Crane continued. Maybe we need to try a different approach. Maybe you need to understand what real weakness looks like so you can act stronger. What do you mean? Lisa asked nervously. I mean, get down on your hands and knees again. But this time, I want you to crawl across the set while you say your lines. That way you'll understand the difference between being down low and standing tall. The entire set became silent. Even the machines seemed to stop humming. Lisa stared at Director Crane with shock and horror. You want me to crawl? She whispered. That's right. Crawl like the weak person you're acting like. Maybe that will help. You find some real strength. Lisa's eyes filled with tears again. Director, please. I'll try harder. I'll do anything else you want. You'll do what I tell you to do, Crane said coldly. Now get down and crawl or get off my set permanently. Lisa looked around at all the faces watching her. The alien actors looked horrified. The human crew members looked angry and ashamed. Jake Morrison looked like he was about to explode. Slowly, Lisa got down on her hands and knees. As she began to crawl across the metal floor while trying to say her lines about human dignity and strength, something inside Jake Morrison finally broke. He had spent 12 years showing aliens the best of human nature. He had worked with beings from dozens of worlds, and they all respected humans because they thought humans were fair and kind and strong. But watching Lisa crawl across the floor while Crane smiled cruelly, Jake realized that everything he had worked for was being destroyed by one evil man. Jake Morrison had reached his breaking point, and when a human reached their breaking point while trying to protect someone they cared about, the entire galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. Jake Morrison watched Lisa crawl across the metal floor, her knees scraping against the cold surface as she tried to deliver lines about human courage and dignity. Director Crane stood above her with his arms crossed, a cruel smile on his face. The alien crew members watched in shocked silence, not understanding how this could be happening. Louder, Crane shouted down at Lisa. If you're going to crawl like an animal, at least speak like a human. That was the moment Jake Morrison's control finally snapped. Jake had been angry before in his life, but this was different. This was not just anger. This was pure, cold fury mixed with a need to protect that came from deep inside his human nature. Every muscle in his body tensed as he stepped forward. Director Crane, Jake said in a voice so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear it. Crane looked up from where he had been watching Lisa crawl. What do you want, Morrison? Can't you see I'm working with my actress? I want you to stop, Jake said, still speaking softly. Right now, Crane laughed. You want me to stop? You work for me, Morrison. I don't take orders from you. Jake took another step forward. The alien crew members began to move backward, sensing that something dangerous was about to happen. They had heard stories about humans in combat, but they had never seen a human prepare to fight in person. "Let me explain something to you, Crane," Jake said, his voice still calm but with an edge that made everyone nervous. "You can yell at me all you want. You can fire me. You can ruin my career, but you cannot make another human being crawl on the ground like an animal while I watch." "Oh, really?" Crane said, stepping closer to Jake. "And what exactly are you going to do about it?" Jake Morrison smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had decided to hunt. "I'm going to give you a choice," Jake said. "You can apologize to Lisa right now in front of everyone and resign from this movie. Or I can show you what happens when you push a human too far." Crane laughed loudly. "Are you threatening me? Do you know who I am? I've made more money for this studio than anyone in history. They'll throw you out an airlock before they'll let you touch me." "Maybe," Jake said, "but you'll be dead before they get the chance." The alien crew members had never heard a human speak like this before. Zek-9 quietly moved to help Lisa stand up, while Crick-7 continued recording everything with his equipment. Lyra covered her mouth with her hands, afraid of what was about to happen. "You're crazy," Crane said, but his voice was not as confident as before. "You can't do anything to me. There are witnesses everywhere." "Yes," Jake said, looking around at all the aliens watching. "There are witnesses. Witnesses who will tell the galaxy exactly what you did to Lisa, and exactly what I did to you because of it." Jake moved so fast that most of the aliens could not follow what happened. One moment he was standing 3 feet away from Director Crane, and the next moment he had grabbed Crane by the front of his expensive shirt and lifted him completely off the ground with one hand. The alien crew members gasped. They had known that humans were strong, but they had never seen a human lift a full-grown adult with one arm like they were picking up a small child. "Put me down," Crane shouted, his feet kicking in the air. "Put me down right now." "I don't think so," Jake said calmly. He began walking toward the edge of the set, carrying Crane like he weighed nothing. "I think you and I need to have a private conversation." "Where are you taking me?" Crane demanded, but his voice was scared now. "To the airlock," Jake said simply. Every being on the set froze. The airlock was the door that led to empty space. If someone went through the airlock without a spacesuit, they would die in seconds. "You can't do that," Crane screamed. "That's murder." "Is it?" Jake asked, still walking calmly toward the airlock. "Or is it justice?" Jake carried Crane through the corridors of the space station, with the entire crew following behind them. Aliens, who had been working in other parts of the station, stopped what they were doing to watch the strange parade. Word spread quickly through the station that something incredible was happening. When they reached the airlock chamber, Jake set Crane down but kept one hand on his shoulder. With his other hand, Jake began pressing buttons on the airlock control panel. "Attention all crew members," Jake said into the communication system. His voice echoed through every speaker on the station. "This is Jake Morrison. I want everyone to listen carefully to what I'm about to say." Hundreds of beings throughout the station stopped working and listened. In the main control room, the station manager and his assistants watched the security cameras in shock. "Director Victor Crane has spent the last 2 days abusing his position of power," Jake continued. "He has humiliated and degraded a fellow human being in front of all of you. He has violated the most basic principles of human behavior, respect for others and protection of the innocent." Jake's finger hovered over the button that would open the outer airlock door. In human culture, when someone uses their power to harm others, we don't just file complaints or hold meetings. We take immediate action to stop them. "Please," Crane whispered, but his voice was so quiet that only Jake could hear it. "Please don't do this." "I'm going to give you 30 seconds, Jake announced to the entire station. 30 seconds to publicly apologize to Lisa Carter for what you did to her. 30 seconds to resign from this movie and promise never to treat another person the way you treated her. If you do those things, you can walk away from here and never come back." Jake looked down at Crane, who was shaking with fear. "And if you don't do those things, you're going to learn what happens when you push human protective instincts too far." The aliens watching could not believe what they were seeing. They had always heard that humans were protective of their friends and family, but they had never imagined it could lead to something like this. 15 seconds, Jake said calmly. Crane looked around at all the faces watching him. He saw Lisa standing with the other crew members, tears still on her cheeks. He saw the alien actors who had watched him humiliate her. He saw the human crew members who looked ashamed of what he had done. 10 seconds. Okay, Crane shouted. Okay, I apologize. Lisa, I'm sorry for what I did to you. I resigned from the movie. I'll leave the station right now, just please don't kill me. Jake looked at him for a long moment, then stepped away from the airlock controls. You have 1 hour to pack your things and get off this station. If I see you again, we'll finish this conversation. As Crane ran away toward his quarters, the alien crew members began talking excitedly among themselves. They had never seen anything like what had just happened. Jake Morrison had been willing to risk his own life and career to protect someone who could not protect herself. Crick 7 approached Jake with his recording equipment. Jake Morrison, what you just did was highly illegal and extremely dangerous. Why did you do it? Jake looked at the Corvex, then at all the other aliens who were listening. Because that's what humans do. When someone hurts one of us, the rest of us make sure it never happens again. We protect each other no matter what the cost. As word of what had happened spread throughout the galaxy, every alien species began to understand something new about human nature. Humans were not just strong or smart or brave. They were willing to risk everything to protect their friends, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy to have as enemies, and the most valuable to have as allies. Within 2 hours of Director Crane leaving Terra Studios, news of what Jake Morrison had done spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Crick 7 had sent his recordings to the Corvex Science Council, who studied human behavior. Zek 9 had shared the story with the Zentari Cultural Archive. Lyra had told her Velen art community about the incredible things she had witnessed. In the communication center of Terra Studios, messages poured in from hundreds of worlds. Studio executives, government officials, news reporters, and ordinary beings from dozens of species all wanted to know more about the human who had threatened to space a movie director to protect his friend. Lisa Carter sat in her quarters, reading message after message of support from beings she had never met. A Zentari poet had written a song about her courage. A group of Velen artists wanted to paint her portrait. 3 different Corvex research teams asked if they could study her as an example of human strength under pressure. I don't understand, Lisa said to Lyra, who was sitting with her. I didn't do anything brave. I was crawling on the floor like Crane wanted me to. That is exactly why Jake did what he did, Lyra explained. You were being hurt, and he could not allow that to continue. In Velen culture, we have stories about warriors who would die before letting harm come to the innocent. We thought those were just legends until today. On the other side of the station, Jake Morrison was dealing with a very different kind of attention. The studio executives wanted to see him immediately. The station security chief was asking questions about what had happened. Several lawyers were demanding to know if he planned to press charges against Director Crane. Jake sat across from Marcus Webb, the head of Terra Studios. Webb was a thin man with gray hair who had been running the studio for 15 years. He looked tired and worried. Jake, what you did today was completely insane, Webb said. You threatened to kill a man. You could go to prison for this. Will I? Jake asked calmly. Webb was quiet for a moment. That depends on whether Crane wants to press charges, and right now he's too scared to do anything except run away and hide. Good, Jake said. Good? Webb repeated. Jake, you nearly threw a man out an airlock. How is that good? Jake leaned forward in his chair. Marcus, for 12 years I've worked to show the galaxy what humans are really like. I've shown them that we're fair, that we're brave, that we help others and solve problems. Do you know what Crane was doing to all of that? Webb nodded slowly. I saw the recordings. What he did to Lisa was wrong. It was more than wrong, Jake said. It was evil. And he was doing it in front of beings from other worlds. He was destroying everything we've built. So you decided to destroy him instead? I decided to stop him, Jake corrected. And I succeeded. While Jake was meeting with the studio executives, something amazing was happening in the main production area. The alien crew members had taken over the filming of Warriors of Earth. Without any human directors telling them what to do, they had organized themselves to help Lisa finish the movie. Crick 7 was using his computer skills to plan each scene. Zek 9 was operating the cameras with 3 other Zentari technicians. Lyra and the Velen costume team were making sure everything looked perfect. Even the alien actors who were supposed to be playing the enemy were helping Lisa practice her lines. "We want to help you finish this movie," Crick 7 explained to Lisa. "What Jake Morrison did today showed us something important about human nature. We want the galaxy to see that story told properly." Lisa was amazed. "But you're not directors, you don't know how to make a movie." "We have been watching human directors for years," Zek 9 said. "We have learned much about your storytelling methods, and more importantly, we understand what this story is really about." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "It is about humans who refuse to give up even when everything seems hopeless," Lyra explained. "It is about humans who protect each other no matter what the cost. We saw that story happen in real life today." As the alien crew worked with Lisa to film the remaining scenes, news reports about Jake Morrison's actions were being broadcast on every major network in the galaxy. The story was told differently on each world, but the basic facts were the same. A human had been willing to risk everything to protect another human from cruelty. On the Zentari homeworld, the Council of Mai, elders held an emergency meeting to discuss what they had learned about human protective instincts. "We have always known that humans were brave in battle," said Elder Vex 12. "But we did not know they would risk their own lives to protect someone who was not even related to them." On the Velen art colonies, painters and sculptors began creating works inspired by Jake's actions. They called their new art movement the Protection Series, and it became the most popular art style in Velen history. The Korvek Science Council issued an official statement. "Today we witnessed a perfect example of human pack bonding behavior under stress. The subject Jake Morrison displayed protective instincts that exceeded all previous data models. This confirms that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy to threaten and the most valuable species to befriend." But the most important reaction came from the Galactic Entertainment Guild, the organization that oversaw all movie and television production in known space. They held an emergency meeting to discuss what had happened at Terra Studios. "What Director Crane did was unacceptable," announced Guild President Tara Singh, a human woman who had been elected by beings from over 50 different species. "And what Jake Morrison did, while extreme, was understandable, given the circumstances." The CO Guild voted unanimously to create new rules for all movie productions. They called them the Morrison Protocols, and they were designed to make sure that no director could ever abuse their power the way Crane had abused his. Meanwhile, back on Terra Studios, something wonderful was happening. Under the guidance of the alien crew members, Lisa Carter was giving the performance of her lifetime. Without Crane there to humiliate and frighten her, she was able to show the strength and courage that had always been inside her. When she delivered the final speech of the movie, about humans never giving up and always protecting each other, tears came to the eyes of every being watching. But these were not tears of sadness like the ones Crane had caused. These were tears of inspiration and hope. "Cut," called Zek 9, who had taken over the director's job. "That was perfect, Lisa. Absolutely perfect." As the alien crew members applauded, Lisa realized that something incredible had happened. The worst day of her life had somehow turned into the best day of her life, all because one man had been willing to risk everything to protect her. "Jake was right," she said to Lyra. "This is what humans do. We protect each other." Word of the new movie spread across the galaxy even before it was finished. Everyone wanted to see the film that had been completed by aliens working together with a human actress who had been defended by the bravest man anyone had ever heard of. And somewhere in a small ship fleeing toward the edge of known space, Victor, Crane realized that he had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had underestimated what it meant to be human. 6 months after the incident at Terra Studios, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his new production facility, watching ships from dozens of different worlds arrive to work on his latest movie. The facility orbited Mars and was 3 times larger than the old Neptune station. A sign by the main entrance read, "Morrison Productions, where every voice matters." Jake had not expected to become a movie director. After what happened with director Crane, he thought he would be fired or arrested. Instead, studio executives from across the galaxy had offered him contracts to direct his own films. They all wanted the man who had shown the universe what human values really meant. "Jake, the cast is ready for the final scene," said his assistant, a young human woman named Amy Chen. Jake had specifically chosen to work with people who understood that respect and kindness were more important than fear and power. The movie they were finishing was called The Shield Bearers, and it starred Lisa Carter as Commander Elena Cross, a human officer who protects a colony of mixed species from space pirates. Lisa had become one of the most famous actresses in the galaxy after Warriors of Earth was released. The movie had broken every box office record in history, not because of fancy special effects, but because it showed real human courage and determination. Jake walked onto the set where Lisa was preparing for her final scene. She looked confident and happy, very different from the scared woman who had been crawling on the floor 6 months ago. Around her, alien crew members from over 20 different species worked together like a perfectly organized team. "How are you feeling, Lisa?" Jake asked. "Nervous but excited," she replied. "This scene is important. It shows that protecting others is not about being the strongest or the toughest. It's about caring enough to put yourself in danger for someone else." Jake smiled. "That sounds like something a real human would say." The final scene of The Shield Bearers took place after the battle was over. Commander Cross was saying goodbye to the alien families she had protected. One by one, beings from different worlds thanked her for saving their lives. "Places, everyone," Jake called out. Unlike Director Crane, Jake never shouted or yelled at his crew. He had learned that people worked better when they felt respected and valued. "Action," Jake said quietly. Lisa began the scene. As Commander Seal Cross, she knelt down to speak to a small Zentari child who had lost his parents in the pirate attack. "Will you stay with us?" the child asked in his musical voice. "I can't stay forever," Lisa said gently. "But I promise you this. As long as there are humans in the galaxy, you will never be alone. We will always come when you need help. That is what humans do." "Cut," Jake said when the scene was finished. "Perfect. That's exactly right." The alien crew members applauded, and several of them had tears in their eyes. The Zentari actor playing, the child hugged Lisa tightly. "That felt real," said Crick 7, who was now the head of computer effects for Morrison Productions. "When you spoke those words, I believed them completely." As the crew began cleaning up the set, Jake received a message on his communication device. It was from Marcus Webb at Terra Studios. "Jake, I thought you should know," the message said. "The Galactic Council has just voted to make the Morrison Protocols mandatory for all entertainment productions in known space. Every director will have to follow the rules you inspired. You've changed the entire industry." Jake smiled as he read the message. The Morrison Protocols were simple rules. Treat all crew members with respect, never humiliate anyone in public, and remember that making movies should be about bringing out the best in people, not the worst. "Good news?" Amy asked, noticing Jake's expression. "The best," Jake replied. "It means that what happened to Lisa will never happen to anyone else." That evening, Morrison Productions held a party to celebrate finishing The Shield Bearers. The main dining hall was filled with humans, Centauri, Velans, Corvex, and beings from dozens of other species, all talking and laughing together like old friends. Lisa Carter stood up to make a speech. "6 months ago, I was crawling on the floor, while a cruel man tried to break my spirit. I thought my career was over and that I would never act again. But then someone reminded me what it really means to be human." She looked at Jake, who was sitting at a table with Zach 9, Lyra, and Crick 7. Jake Morrison could have stayed quiet and kept his job safe. Instead, he risked everything to protect me. He showed the galaxy that humans don't just talk about doing the right thing. We actually do it. The room erupted in applause. Beings from dozens of worlds stood up and cheered for both Lisa and Jake. "But this story isn't really about me or Jake," Lisa continued. "It's about all of us. It's about what happens when different species work together with respect and kindness. Every person in this room, human or alien, helped make this movie something special." Later that night, Jake stood on the observation deck again, looking out at the stars. Lyra joined him, her silver hair glowing in the starlight. "What are you thinking about?" the Velen asked. "I'm thinking about how much things have changed," Jake said. 6 months ago, I was just a stuntman trying to keep people safe on movie sets. Now I'm somehow responsible for changing how the entire galaxy makes entertainment." "You did more than change the entertainment industry," Lyra said. "You reminded everyone what humans are really like. Before that day, some species thought humans were just another aggressive species that happened to be good at fighting. Now they understand that human strength comes from protecting others, not hurting them." Jake nodded. "I hope so. I hope that when alien children learn about humans in school, they learn that we're the species that stands up for those who can't stand up for themselves." "They will," Lyra assured him. "The story of what you did for Lisa Carter is already being taught in schools on 40 different worlds. Children of every species are learning that true strength means protecting the weak, not taking advantage of them." As they talked, a new ship appeared in the distance, approaching the production facility. Jake recognized it as a transport from the Outer Rim territories, carrying actors and crew members for his next movie. "What's the next project about?" Lyra asked, noticing Jake watching the approaching ship. "It's about a human rescue team that saves miners trapped on a collapsing asteroid," Jake explained. "The miners are from 6 different species, and they all have to work together to survive until help arrives." "Another story about humans protecting others," Lyra observed with a smile. "That's what humans do," Jake said simply. "That's what we've always done. I'm just making sure the galaxy remembers it." The transport ship docked with the facility, and Jake watched through the observation window as dozens of beings from different worlds stepped onto his station. They were all here because they wanted to work with the human who had shown the galaxy what true courage looked like. As Jake headed back inside to welcome the new arrivals, he thought about Director Crane, who was now living in exile on a distant world forgotten by everyone. Crane had tried to use fear and cruelty to control people, and he had lost everything. Jake had chosen to protect and inspire people, and he had gained more than he ever imagined possible. The lesson was simple, and it was one that every species in the galaxy now understood. Humans were dangerous to their enemies and precious to their friends. And that was exactly the way Jake Morrison wanted it to be.